Well, a tax rate increase, or is it still the same? We're going to have some straight talk with the Doctor of Finance and the Iron Lady. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is the Bunker Bob Show. Yes, and good afternoon. It is great to be with you. We are running a little bit behind. I realize that a lot of you have been waiting for a little bit. We've been updating some of our numbers and our figures so that we are presenting you with the best information that we possibly can. And the reason for that is we have none other than the Mr. Persnickety. That, of course, is Mr. Scott Turnbull with me today. And not just that, but we also have live via satellite, or actually the internet. It sounds better to say live via satellite, though. Live via the internet or satellite, of course, the Iron Lady herself, Adrienne Balkum. So it is great to have the two of you with us today, and I'm looking forward to a great show. One of the things that we want to focus on is the fact that we had a what amounts to, for lack of a better word, a 25% tax increase, even though the tax rate stayed the same. When you consider the fact that the money that was being invested in debt reduction is now going into what they're trying to convince citizens is a savings account. But the whole purpose of that savings account is to basically pad the pockets I'm being told I'm too loud. To pad the pockets of those who basically pay nothing in taxes. Those in the unincorporated area of our fire district contribute nothing, and basically what the city council is doing is keeping us on the hook for all of this, for all of the fire department, all of the fire safety, and at a level that is amounts to and is equal to cities that are 10 times our size. So there's a lot of questions that the city council did not ask, that they refused to ask because, well, frankly, they didn't want to ask those questions. And but we asked some of them. Of course, they didn't answer any of them, and that's where we bring in Scott Turnbull for this. And one of the things that I want to start out with, Scott, and Adrienne, who's also online with us right now, is I want to highlight what exactly occurred, and so that people don't think, well, hey, he's making it up that that the increase that was a tax increase. Well, you just watch the Mayor Pro Tem Jim Bloom, and he'll tell you for himself. Watch this.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the rate of 15 cents. Then those numbers, I don't know what that would be. Increase in the tax rate, and that the ordinance levying this tax rate be approved.
Yeah, so the increase, there was a tax increase, and so there's no question about that. The question is, how exactly is that money being spent? And right now, the city council, when they proposed this tax rate increase, they had originally focused on the 16.5 cents, and they went to 15 cents. That's what the rate that they adopted is, so that they could have all of these things added to the size, added to our government to increase the size and scope of our city government, which is what happened. And because none of it's going toward, because that what the excess was going toward was the debt, and that's not happening anymore. So,
nope. And
Councilman, or former Mayor Pro Tem Mr. Persnickety, go ahead and tell me what I said that wasn't.
No, what you said was fine. What people need to remember is this slide that you're looking at, it was current as of the Friday night before the last meeting. This was what was included in the packet as far as the citizens knew, and theoretically as far as the council knew. This is what they were going to present to the city. This is what was posted on the website for citizens to learn, that they were going for the 16.5 recommended by our city accountant tax rate so that they could fund 3 check marks in the fund balance policy, not just one. So,
Well, I've always heard 3 is better than 1.
well, depends on who's footing the bill.
That's right. Well, that's right. And so, Adrienne, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I just think that it's at the end of the day. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if you're.
We can hear you great.
It just, after we kind of talked about a little bit about their presentation a bit, and I think that it was clearly obvious that they definitely had some sort of discussions on that, and I think they're trying to make the appearance that they didn't really do a tax increase, but they don't want to talk about the debt that is still there. So I think that needs to be addressed, and I don't think they cared to address it because they made no mention of it. Definitely not in their presentation.
Well, no question about that. That. And sorry, I think I took you off screen for a minute. I didn't mean to do that, but yeah, that's certainly one of the concerns that we have had as we've gone through this whole process. Scott, what do you think?
Well, it's, as I said at the meeting, they are trying to hide behind the fire department, and that's what they were justifying this 16.5 cent tax increase. And they're still hiding behind the fire department with the 15 cents. So they're asking for more money than what they need. They can meet all of their goals without the 15-cent tax rate. They could actually lower it, or they could go back to paying debt service instead of padding the M&O portion of the budget.
Yeah, so we've got some wild dogs going crazy a little bit in our studio. So, and Adrienne, you've got some wild kids going crazy in your studio, don't you? Every once in a while.
Apparently.
All right. Well, let's. One of the things I think would be good to focus on as well is some of the things that former candidate, when she was running for office, Lorna Kippett really promoted about herself, and that was that she was a fiscal conservative. And she says, and I quote, "As a fiscal conservative, Lorna will work to reduce the tax rate and improve services to the community by cutting wasteful spending. She believes government should operate within its budget just like families every day." And obviously, obviously,
I have to ask a question.
yeah.
She's wanting to operate inside her budget, but she needs a $265,759 cushion to be able to do that.
Well, and what you're talking about, what Scott's referring to, is something that we're going to actually show you the bottom line about this cushion that he's talking about. But tell us a little bit more.
Well, I'm sorry. I should give her credit, because originally at the 16.5, she was needing $330,000 to get by as cushion.
Right.
Now she's dropped it down to 265. So she reduced it, but that there flyer of hers, I'm sorry, that sounded as hick as can be. That there, her flyer states that she will work to reduce the tax rate. Tax rate's the same as it was last year. Guess she didn't work hard enough.
Well, actually, she says even more than that. But let's
Wait.
Yeah,
One
go
thing
ahead.
I want to interrupt is about
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
is that, okay, so during the budget time, during the budget workshop, and because this is the things that wasn't really mentioned, and is about that they tried to say that it was about the fire department, and that's the reason why the reasonings for the tax quote unquote increase. But in addition to that, they were trying to say that it was the city accountant. But if you're listening through the budget workshops, thankfully that we did some recordings through that. That's way so that we can be able to go back and understand how this came about. But the council has indicated a preference to move funds from the debt side to the operating and maintenance side of the budget, where funds are needed most to maintain and enhance services, which is why this causes the rollback rate to decrease. And this explains why the rollback rate is lower than the effective rate this year. But they don't want to talk about that, because I remember specifically, Kippett and all of them talking about that's where they wanted the monies to go towards in operation. They didn't talk about the debt in any of those issues. And I think that we need to make sure to remember why it's important to focus on, we need to put money towards paying off the debt. I think Doctor of Finance should probably illuminate about that interest rate and why it's important.
Well, Adrienne, come on. Do you really worry about your credit card debt when you want to go buy a new purse? Or new shoes. I mean, I'm sorry. I know I'm stereotypical there, but that's what they're doing. They're saying, I don't care what my credit card debt is. I'm going to take the money that I'm earning, or bringing in, and I'm going to put it in a savings account so that I can buy whatever I want without having to use my credit card. But what they're not doing is, by leaving that balance on the credit card, they are paying a higher interest rate than what they're earning on their savings. Mm-hmm. The interest rate on the long-term bonds is 4%. Right now, I haven't seen the pool, the investment pool that the city puts its money in, its interest rate, but it tracked pretty much what CDs were. And CDs right now are roughly $210, $225 for a year. So you're paying twice as much interest as what you're earning.
Well, and so, it's really important to reflect on what she says. She believes government should operate within its budget, just like families do every day. And here's a good example of what families do every day.
I feel like I'm looking at a piece of paper that's outdated, and I don't know what the proposed budget is, because we made changes. And I feel ill-prepared to make a tax rate without dated information.
I think you only took out about 18,000. And then the other question is going to be what you do with salaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's an important point, as Mrs. Kippett points out, is that you need to live within your budget and you need to understand what's going on. But she is lost in this budget process, and that's one of the most confounding things about it. If we look at her again, going back to her campaign piece, let's not forget who she said she was. She called herself a fiscal conservative, fighting to lower is the key word, taxes, and fight for small government. Well, I want to show this is a rather lengthy clip. It's 3 minutes and 17 seconds. And the reason this is important to show and that you see this is because this is the sum total of what the city council actually engaged in discussion. This is the most discussion that you will ever find on record, in recording or on video. And what I've done is I put the wrong time code on here, so I put a date underneath the video. It says October 2nd. That's today. That's when I imported it, and my program automatically put today's date. This was back in August. This is when they are proposing the tax rate. And I want you to listen to how focused Lorna Kippett is and all of the other members of City Council. And don't forget William Dahl, Slick Willie Dahl. This is a guy who says we're going to cut every bit of pork out. We're going to have a lean and mean budget. I want you to listen for yourself and ask yourself, are these people really conservatives? Are these the people that
Well, I want to make a quick comment
Sure.
before you move off
Yeah.
the screen. Right below your circle there,
Oh,
she says, I will promote polite and constructive dialogue among the council members.
like her husband, and her husband gives us a great example. Yeah.
Okay. She's promoting it, but let's listen to how much dialogue actually takes place.
Okay, that's a great point. All right, so let's. So here's the video, so you can hear for yourself this great discussion.
So I'll make a motion to set the proposed tax rate to 16.5% for $100 value.
Okay. All right, there's the motion. Do we have a second? Going once. There's the motion on the table. Do I have a second on that motion setting the max tax rate at 16.5?
I'll second the motion for the tax rate.
Okay. Now open for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Okay, I seconded it because I wanted to make sure we had time to discuss it and just let it die. Didn't let the motion die. I think I'm concerned because we don't have an accurate budget worksheet in front of us that we can actually look at, nor can we determine exactly what amount would be going to the reserve fund that we're just about ready to establish. But I also don't want to put the city in peril because we didn't set a high enough maximum tax rate. I guess that's my concern. Yeah, because I really want to iron out the whole reserve component aspect, since this is the first time that we're doing it. We're basically changing the way that we do things, and I just want to understand.
Yeah, so she just wants to understand what's happening. To me, this was the most fascinating dialogue and discussion that I've seen come from the city council, and there is just very little discussion at all. And she's focused on wanting to make sure that the tax rate's high enough. That's her concern, over and above other things.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
She's lowering taxes.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
No, come on. Which is it?
You tell me.
Well.
Sorry, Adrienne. Say that again. I had you off. Go ahead. Oh, and my microphone was off. Sorry about that.
I said that that was Trudy Wessner in regard to it wasn't sure that it wasn't high enough.
And Lorna said it too.
Yeah, Lorna also said it in that clip.
Yep.
She didn't want to put the city in peril.
Right. So this is, this is such a difference from when you and Adrienne and I were in office. I mean, our focus was how do we prevent the size and scope of government growing? How can we keep taxes low? Our discussions were around how do we keep taxes low, not how we can spend money for the future, not how we can provide more services, because our whole mindset, the entire council, was the same. We didn't believe that growing government was a positive thing. We thought that liberty and freedom was more important. And that's what most of the citizens in McLendon-Chisholm believe, we think as well. So I think that's an important distinction. And what you saw there, and what's so important is, throughout this process, throughout the budget process, Scott, you're one of the only people, you are really the only person. There's one other citizen who attended some of these meetings as well, but they had a day-long retreat that was 8 hours that they did not record, that they did not broadcast, even though they've got $6,000 worth of new broadcasting equipment so that they can do that. They had 2 additional budget meetings. And by the way, if you noticed on that last video, if you noticed how the things were panning back and forth and you had different camera angles, that's because I was there recording these things. Because the city council and by the way, my whole setup to do this show, it costs less than $2,000. The city of McLendon-Chisholm, and by the way, I have the same kind of equipment that the city of McLendon-Chisholm had when I was mayor, and we broadcast our every city council meeting. Now that they have a $6,000 system, they only record occasionally, and you only get one angle, and you can't see who's speaking from the podium. If anyone ever says from the city council that transparency is important to them, you need to laugh in their face. So I want to talk. I want to move to the budget issue and move to some numbers here. And this is what have we got? We've got. Is this the?
This is what I was going to.
Oh yes.
Talk about and how in the format change on how they record things.
Yes. So why don't you? This is important. So go ahead and talk about that.
Okay. Well, go ahead and draw your circle back there again.
All right. So.
And can you blow this screen up?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
So what we're looking at is expenses. If you notice there at the bottom, there's a transfer from the cash reserve.
Right.
You'll see that $251,106. There is a $251,106
transfer
deficit.
Right.
And then it's transferred at the bottom of that. Go ahead.
Right.
Scott.
And that's the thing. In the past, and this is 2013-14.
Yes, and then there's 2014-15.
They've always used the format where they show whether or not you're running a deficit or a surplus, and then if you're in a deficit, they transfer in funds to balance the budget.
Here's 2015-16.
And they've always done this.
There's 17.
Okay, that one, they actually changed the name. It said transfer from prior year surplus. Because that particular instance, there was an expenditure that was supposed to have happened the year before. It didn't because the county didn't get the roads on their schedules, so it was moved into the next fiscal year, so the money was set aside for it, so they moved it. Now, this is the utility fund. This year, for some reason, they decided to put the transfer up in the revenue section of the utility fund instead of down at the bottom. End result, doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It comes out to zero. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't show the $49,554 deficit that they're projecting in the utility fund, and that they're going to have to pull money from the surplus to cover it. Now, 1 second.
Yeah, and on that utility fund, there's also well, I guess I'll let you finish that.
Well, what I was going to say is revenue is new money coming in. If you did this in your household, if you took money out of your savings and put it in your checking account to pay for a shortfall and you reported that as revenue, the IRS would love you because you didn't pay taxes on it again. But pulling it out of your savings and you've already paid taxes, it's your money. You're just moving it to a different location. The fact that they listed this in revenue is a blatant attempt to hide the fact that they're running a deficit in this fund.
But there's a problem with that, and the fundamental problem is that that they're all about transparency, and I think you're missing that. And let me.
There's nothing transparent about that.
Oh, I think you're wrong.
My goals
Listen
is
to
to
this.
make sure that you have as much transparency as possible, and that's what I'm going to seek out to do.
That, my friends, is our own Slick Willie Dahl. Did you hear that? He's
I
going to
heard
make
him.
sure that Transparency is.
And his laser pointer the batteries must have died because he missed that one.
And B, I also want to make sure that if there is any pork in that budget, we cut it out. We keep it lean and mean.
Lean and mean, says
Lean
Slick
and mean,
Willie.
and you have originally a $330,000 surplus. That is not being lean and mean.
Yeah.
That's being greedy.
That's
So while I was there, can you hear me?
yes. Go ahead.
While I was there at the city council meeting, I sat right behind Ray Smith. He's the city accountant. And I know he specifically told me that the reason why he was there is because he was asked to be there just in case if there was any questions related to the budget to be able to, answer. After the meeting, we briefly discussed just some things. And one of the things he asked me was something that I made in citizen comments. And I think there was another citizen that also stood up and said something as well in regard to the utility fund. And it was just really wasn't addressed really well. I think it was like $49,000 is what we're talking about, the line item that was switched over into this bucket. And the problem that it appears, it looks like it's coming out of the general fund and not out of the utilities for Sonoma Verde.
And so Adrienne?
Yeah, and that's a great point because Scott wanted to talk about that.
I want to jump in here and
hold on. Let her finish.
So he specifically told me that that it is coming from Sonoma Verde, and so and then as I'm listening to you, you're saying that it isn't. So
let me clarify that.
Yeah.
No, it's coming from the utility fund. Now, the interesting thing is on the budget, the 16.5 cent budget, that line item was entitled from surplus. On the approved budget, it's from utility fund surplus. So they clarified that. And as I told Robert earlier, I've got to do a little bit of a mea culpa here because I was wrong. I got myopic and was focused on the reserve fund and forgot that the document that they were showing that $49,554 on was an operating budget, which is how they're accounting for the monies that are going to come in during next year and go out during next year. And as I said just a little bit ago, what they did was they transferred money from their savings account, if you want to put it in a personal aspect, the reserve fund, the utility reserve fund, onto the budget so that it came up to a zero balance. But they shouldn't have done it under the revenue. It should have been down at the bottom, just like we showed that they have done for the last 10 years. They should have recognized the deficit and shown a transfer to offset it rather than booking it up top as revenue, because they never have to recognize that they're operating a deficit budget for the utility fund. Now, as I said, I was wrong in saying that it was coming from the general fund because it's not. It is coming out of the utility fund balance, but by doing that, they're reducing the utility fund balance. They're operating at a deficit.
So help me understand. It's almost as though this reserve fund, which basically the utility fund is, has always appeared that way to me because it's money that's kind of just stored up. So this reserve fund has its own reserve fund.
Well, there's two parts to it. The intention on the presentation of why we have a utility fund is to be able to have money set aside. It's not going to be enough right now if something detrimental does happen to the utilities here in Sonoma Verde, but because we're still fairly new, and there's about $97,000 that was in there the last time I checked. So the whole point of it is that there's a portion of the monies that are supposed to be going into that for future maintenance. And so what I suggested to Ray as of that last council meeting was probably should work on the wording, and that's what I'm hearing from Scott. It sounds like there's a definite issue with explaining what that item is, because we don't want to give the appearance that it's coming from the general fund, because we're in Sonoma Verde. They're the only ones who have this type of utility service.
Right. You are.
Right.
That's right.
Adrienne, the 97,000 is on the infrastructure, the PID infrastructure.
You want to go back to that utility fund?
Yeah, to the utility fund balance.
Sure.
Yes, I realize that it's for the infrastructure. I'm just saying we don't have enough. If something like were to cost, like, say, $1 million, we don't.
Right.
If we have to do $1 million repair, we don't have enough. But every little bit helps from collecting it from the monies in the utility fund or the utility maintenance portion.
Right. As of the end of August, there was right at $400,000, I believe, at the in the utility fund. That was because we got about a $66,000 chunk of money from new sewer taps. But the real issue is the budget is a document that shows how the money's going to be handled as it comes in and goes out, and it's a projection. The money that the budget is addressing is stored in the bank account called the Utility Fund Reserve, or Utility Reserve Fund. So, and because it's got to be separated from all the other money, because it is explicitly for the sewer system, and so it's got to be separated.
Did they change the wording when they
did? That's what I said. On what was in the packet said surplus. What's on the final budget, the adopted budget, says utility fund surplus. So they made it clearer where the money was coming from.
Okay.
So what I had told you and what the statement that I made in front of the council was wrong, but it was because they were using vague terms and they changed their format so that to hide the fact that they're using a deficit budget for the utility fund. That's where that comes in at. And Robert wasn't able to find it, and I will, but Slick Willie's got an answer for that one too, because he said he would never have a deficit spending.
Yeah, that's right. And so I was that's what delayed our show, is we were looking through hours of tape. And you know what? I miss Slick Willie. I wonder why he's not doing his show anymore.
That's because he got his hand slapped.
Yeah, and someone said, "Are you watching what Bunker Bob is doing? He's taking you to task on every lie."
Well, yeah, and they went to school and found out that they should have a social media policy. Yes. Did we ever have one of those, Adrienne?
Yes, we did have a social media policy.
And basically we said we shouldn't make comments on social media. We should use it responsibly. And oops, they went out and kind of set themselves up for a little bit of response to their comments. And gee, next thing you know, the mayor's saying, we can't do that. You got to be careful about what you say on social media. So we're going to restrict it to a central location that'll come out of the city and be approved by the city. That's what we used to do.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And so when we look at the budget itself, and we think about they were proposing 16.5 cents, and they presented a budget with 16.5 cents as what 16.5 cents would do, and then they passed a 15.5 cent budget.
No, 15.
Excuse me, thank you, 15-cent budget, and so those numbers look different in the budget itself. And so, Scott, you had me pull the image of the two budgets, the one that was in the packet and the one that was passed, so that we could show citizens what exactly the difference is as far as that goes. And that's what you're seeing on your screen now. Tell them what this is, Scott.
Right. The far right column is what they proposed from the minute they started talking about the budget up until the packet for the September 24th meeting. This is what you saw, that they were going to raise $602,007 in ad valorem tax. That's line 317 if you're keeping track at home. Then, all of a sudden, they decided that they could actually operate collecting $537,708 and still get by. And that's the amount of ad valorem tax for maintenance and operation that the 15 cents is going to generate.
Yep. So,
go to the next slide, Bob.
Before you go to the next slide, I just want to point out that you have shared this information previously of how to be able to operate even on 15 cents. I just want to point that out.
Oh yeah.
Well,
we're gonna show that.
So did
without
the
a
city
problem.
council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they showed that they had plenty of money. Okay.
Yes.
Here's the bottom line on the budget. And originally they said they needed $330,057. Got to have it. That's what we need to keep the city safe, to prepare for the SAFER grants going away, to build their reserve fund, yada, 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 yada.
Need is the word they used.
And all of a sudden, on the 24th, they come out and say, no, we can do this on 15 cents. And that drops down their surplus to $759. $765,759. Thank you. Okay, and
$265,759.
God, you need to blow that up for us blind folks.
I'm one of you.
Yes, $265,759. Now, what's the difference, Bob?
Well, I think we know that.
$64,289. Now, most people say, well, that's a pretty good chunk of money. And it is. But what they didn't tell you is right after they passed this budget, right before they passed this budget, they entered into a 380 agreement with Oak
National Holdings.
Yes, Oak National
J-Web,
Holdings.
not to be confused with J-Web. J-Web and J-Web are two different people, and don't you get them wrong. Go ahead.
Okay, hush up. More important things.
Ask Mike Donegan. He'll tell you.
So, this 380 agreement is going to create an estimated $110,000 to $120,000 in additional sales tax revenue for the city. So they're just starting this up, and let's be generous and say it's going to take them 6 months to get it set up and running. So instead of getting $120,000, we're going to get $60,000, which means if they had included that in their budget on the sales tax line item, their surplus would only be $4,289 difference. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Wow. So the surplus is actually going to bring them to that point where they wanted to be at 16.5 cents.
And that's if the 380 agreement only generates 50% of its projection.
Okay.
All right, can I throw in just another wild card number?
Absolutely.
You can.
Okay, so you know how we get the 67.5 from
Oh,
Rockwall
yes.
County, and we have to sign we had to sign an agreement annually to to serve them. Well, at the Rockwall County Commissioners Court, they apparently approved for 77,500, so 10,000 more.
Isn't that interesting? Adrienne, how much did the
Yeah.
county ask for dispatch last year?
10,000.
Do you think it could be possible that they're taking the 10,000 that we gave them and giving it back to us?
No, that's impossible. That they wouldn't be doing something like that.
I mean, gee, $10,000
Wow.
to handle
Wow.
less than 1,000 calls.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
So,
Well, that's the other thing I was going to bring up is that at no point do you ever hear like the breakdown of the call volume. And at the end of this particular council meeting, I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Bloom bringing up about the call volume, but it's not broken down of like how many fires do we have. He doesn't talk about the call types. He doesn't talk about where these incidents are occurring, because the way that the information is provided to the city council is not like that. And one of the reasons why we need to have it that way is to support evidence to the county commissioners to say, look, guys, we have a lot of call volume that's happening outside of the city. Therefore, this is a reasoning why we should be requesting an increase in the monies that are contributed to McLendon-Chisholm.
oh no, Adrienne, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off there, but you don't think that there isn't somebody running between Chief Simmons's offices and Dennis Bailey's office with every bit of data that they've got broken down in whatever manner to generate more money out of the county? Because there's one person that we know that is best buds with both those people. He's
Look.
just a hint. He's married to a council member, but so yeah,
As far
I
as I'm
think
concerned, those numbers are all fluff and they're not legit. So
what we're seeing,
I'm sorry.
what we're seeing, yeah, it's as obfuscated as possible. But I'm sure that if it'll get Simmons a new toy, he'll give the real numbers to anybody who asks for it, especially the county commissioners.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. One of the things that I think we've talked a little bit about Lorna Kippett and how she campaigned as a fiscal conservative. And as Scott, you talked a little bit about the fact that these last few weeks, the city council has been doing has made a concerted effort to convince citizens that a 16.5 cent tax rate was the right thing to do. You heard Lorna Kippett talk about we want to make sure that we don't go too low with the tax rate.
Don't put us in peril.
Don't put us in exactly. Don't put us in peril, because doing so would certainly hurt our city's future, and more importantly, their plans for this city that they've never disclosed to anyone. And as she does this, Mrs. Kippett, and honestly, Scott, I don't think that you can say one without the other. I mean, Mark and Lorna Kippett are two peas in a pod. They are one. Obviously, they're married. But Mr. Kippett is I want to say he's the most dishonest man in the city of McLendon-Chisholm. I don't know that I can say that, because you got Mike Donning, you got Gary Mill, you got a lot of people who come in and
Dennis Bailey.
Dennis Bailey too. You got a lot of people who are going to be.
Did you restrict it to the city?
I did restrict it to the city. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but here you have this concerted effort. They had a presentation that they put together that I debunked, thanks to Scott and Adrienne, who helped me identify some of the holes in these things. And there were many, 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 and we only got to some of them. We asked 10 questions that the city council never answered. But more importantly, when you heard Slick Willie Dahl talk about transparency, and if you're if you're new to the city, you've got to understand that Mark Kippett and the former mayor of McLendon-Chisholm, Mike Donegan, they filed an open meetings violation complaint against me and the city council, Scott Turnbull, Adrienne Balkum, and the rest, saying that we were violating the Texas Open Meetings Act. When in fact, throughout my tenure, thanks to Adrienne Balkum, we were televising every meeting, and we were the most transparent city council that has ever existed in this city. And yet, you have Lorna Kippett, who's part of this, trying to this idea of they were transparent. She's going to bring in transparency. The big question you have to ask yourself is after the marathon meeting, 8-hour marathon meeting that was not televised or recorded, 2 budget meetings, neither of which were televised or recorded, where, by the way, I recorded one of them, right? I recorded a quarter of the other one. And Scott, you were at all of them.
No, I missed the one.
You were not at the one that I recorded.
The full one.
The full one that I recorded. So we had eyes on all 3 of those meetings. And in none of those meetings, I played for you the most discussion that ever came about during this budget process. That is the most discussion that ever came about. And after all of the effort, you have the mayor putting something on the website, a letter explaining that this is a need to go to 16.5 cents. You have a presentation, a full-out presentation, which, by the way, they decided not to do during the city council meeting. I think maybe because a few hours before then that I kind of debunked every point that they made. And I highlighted all of the lies and obfuscations that they were presenting to you. And after all of that effort, after all of that work to get citizens to buy into this tax rate increase, you then have Lorna Kippett, who makes the motion to pass a 16.5 tax rate. So here is Lorna Kippett making this motion. Watch for yourself.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the budget, adjusting the budget to reflect a 15-cent tax rate from the 165 tax rate for the FY 2020 budget starting October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2019.
I think you're on the wrong one. We're talking about the budget first.
I know that.
Yeah, Mayor, I
Say it
know
one more
that.
time for me, though, just so I can get the language right.
I move to approve the budget, adjusting the budget to reflect the 15-cent tax rate from the 165 tax rate for FY 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay,
so go ahead, Adrienne.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I could have sworn that you have to set the budget first, and then to be able to determine the tax rate.
Well, that's what she was doing.
What she was doing, because everything they had right up to that minute reflected them earning ad valorem taxes at 16.5. So what she said was, we're going to modify the budget to reflect only collecting 15 cents instead of 16.5. Now, frankly, I think they should have had to have explained right then and there how they were splitting it between M&O and debt service, so that...
Well, that's where I was going to lead into, because I could have sworn that was a requirement to do. And we actually had the city attorney there.
Okay. The way she did it, I think, I'm assuming that it was okay because he didn't correct them. But
I don't think he was paying attention. And the reason why I say that is because at some point, I think it was Bloom who actually he was making the motion. He said the number for the tax rate would be 15 cents, but then there was another portion below where you're supposed to read off what that new percentage is, and that wasn't done. And somehow they were going to figure it out later. And we've been waiting for that document. I don't know when it was published. Was it published Monday?
Actually, it hasn't been published. I got it from Lisa because I requested it, but it hasn't been published yet. At least not unless it went up since about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Well, 1:30 was, I think, the last time I looked. It still had the proposed budget, the 16.5, on the website. So
it's a requirement for October 1st, to my understanding.
That's when it has to be in effect. Yes, I agree. I think it should be on the website. But, that's a whole nother issue.
It may have been delivered to the county Rockwall CAD. It may have been delivered, but
but you, Joe Citizen, can't go out and figure out what they did because they haven't posted it yet. But it comes down to the reason when Bloom makes his motion is because the packet had information based on 16.5. The language that was set out by the staff to meet the requirements for making that motion was set at 16.5. So when Lorna made her motion to modify the budget to reflect a 15-cent ad valorem rate, they needed to do to split it and say, here's what's changing on that budget. You're absolutely right. They should have. At the very least, they should have said, we're going to continue doing the 2.456 for debt service, and we're changing the M&O down to 12.544 for maintenance and operation. I'm sorry, Bob. I know you're
missing the best part.
Okay, but I'm answering her question now. The real point that I keep mentioning here is the documents they had in front of them still were for the 16.5 budget. Now, Bob, your point?
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, it's not just my point; it's your point. I mean, is something
that's true, Bob. Go back and play her motion again.
Okay.
And then I ask the audience, the viewers,
yes,
to ignore Lorna.
Yes.
And focus on the other members of the council as she's making this motion.
Yes. Watch this. This is classic.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the budget, adjusting the budget to reflect a 15-cent tax rate from the 165 tax rate for the FY 2020 budget starting October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2019.
I think you're on the wrong one.
Okay.
We're talking about the budget first.
You saw all of the heads jerk towards her.
Yep.
When she changed the game, she called an audible right there on the dais and said, we're not doing 6.5, folks. We're doing 15.
I mean, we've been working, how many weeks we put a presentation together telling people we need 60.5 cents. This is a shock.
And we didn't even tell staff so they could change the packet.
That's right.
So we would have correct documents to do this.
Yep.
She surprised everybody. One more time, Bob.
I move to approve the budget, adjusting the budget to reflect a 15-cent tax rate from the 165
Trudy didn't even raise her head.
2020 budget starting
Slick Willie didn't flinch
and ending September 30th, 2019.
Jim Bloom didn't do anything. The former mayor scratches his head, stretches. But they never
come
look
on.
at Lorna.
Would you
They
say
never
one time for me?
question
Get the
anything.
budget right?
The question isn't
Approve the budget,
the problem
about
for
the
them isn't
adjusting the budget.
what
to
she's doing.
reflect
The
15
problem
cent
is,
tax rate
are we on the right
from the
right point on the
165 tax rate
on
Right.
the, on the
FY
agenda?
2020.
And watch Jim Bloom.
I'll second that.
Second that. Wow, look how
Second.
fast.
Any discussion?
Let's listen to all the discussion. No discussion. The only actually there was discussion, and it was in the form of a prepared statement by Lorna Kippett, who was ready to go, and who remember, she's the person who seconded the motion for the 16.5 cent tax rate.
That's right.
This is something, folks. How many times have we talked about the lack of transparency and the fact of what's really going on in our city? These people are having these meetings and these discussions. Everything is happening behind closed doors. None of this, no discussion whatsoever, is happening behind the dais in front of citizens. And I'm wondering, I'm curious, do we have a district attorney in Rockwall County? Is there such a thing? Does our district attorney believe in the rule of law? Is our district attorney paying any attention at all? Because when I was mayor, her friend, Mark Kippett, a major donor to her campaign, she was glad to have the sheriff investigate us. Why? I'm just curious. Why isn't the district attorney looking at all of this mountain of evidence for herself and saying, wait a minute, this is not right? It's because we live in a good old boy network, folks, and that's what kind of city we live in, and don't expect any of this to change. What do you think?
Oh, I doubt that it'll change. Do I think that they're violating TOMA? Yeah,
Absolutely, they are.
There's no way.
There's no question, because like they gave it away with that presentation. If you look at the presentation and you look at the last two columns in regard to 16.5 and 15 cents, I mean, it was, to me, it was like a telltale sign of discussions going on, and that it was no surprise to me at all when they said it was going to go down to 15 cents. I mean,
it was to me, but
you have to look at those details.
It was to me. I didn't think they'd ever give up that money. But the thing that's interesting is that presentation. September 10th, they had a meeting. Everything was still at 16.5. On September 13th, council member Hodges created that presentation.
Oh, okay.
The last time it was touched was the day it was uploaded to the city website by Lisa. That was the last time it was modified. So again, how did they compile this? How did they get everybody to agree on this presentation? Because it's entitled a presentation from the council.
From the council, from the city council.
It's not from city staff.
Nope.
It's not from the mayor.
Nope.
It is from the council. So that
And also
indicates
to
the
note
council
that
has approved it.
That's right.
There was no direction that was going to happen in previous meetings.
No.
So, it's very frustrating, because looking back of all the work that we've done and how many hours that we spent, these meetings were legitimately, we had honest discussion. I mean, I just remember how many times that we presented things to advocate for whatever it is that we were discussing, and showing numbers, having discussions with staff and all that, actual discussions with staff. And, sometimes they did get heated, but at the end of the day, that was what we were called to do. And that's not happening here.
No.
So if anybody wants to sit there and say like, oh, well, yeah, they're transparent. Okay, look, they can be nice to you. I'm sure that they're, nice people but as far as when it comes to being an excellent council member and all that, I just don't think that most of them are doing what they're elected to do.
They're politicians.
And sometimes you actually have to have, tough discussions, especially with your staff, so
Well,
there's something missing.
the thing that I found somewhat interesting, was citizens' comments at the last meeting.
Oh, one more thing. I
ahead.
got a message from somebody who mentioned something as a reminder. You know, Lorna Kippett made an off-the-cuff speech. She's not a person that normally, just writes off-the-cuff speech. And
No, she's
off the cuff.
Adrienne, actually what she said is, I don't speak off the cuff well, so I have prepared comments.
Yes.
That's
Well, okay.
if you go back and look, that's actually what it says.
Yeah.
But
fine.
sorry.
The point is, Mr. Persnickety.
Sorry.
He's right.
She was quoting something from Val Bodart, where if you saw that council meeting prior, we had Mark Kippett making snide comments about you because you made some citizen comments, and he used that podium not to address the city council, because that is what you're supposed to be doing.
He called Scott reprehensible.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the same thing that's so frustrating, is that it's not when you go to the citizen comments, you're there to address the city council members. Okay.
But Adrienne, that's what you don't understand. And I love you. I love you, but I love you, but that's what you don't understand. Mark Kippett is the city council. He's the one who makes the decisions. He's the one who drives the ship. He's the one that everyone listens to. If Mark Kippett, the East Coast liberal, if he says it, then they believe that it's gospel.
Well, but Bob, wait a second.
Anyway,
Wait.
We're getting off track.
No, we're not, because
Val got up to speak because she was very frustrated at some of the things that was being said, and it was like out of decorum, and she addressed that with the mayor, and the mayor was asking like, well, what was out of decorum? And I don't know if he understands what that meant. I'm not sure what she was trying to convey, but basically the remarks of having Mark come back up there to say what he had to say in regard to Scott's comments when he was addressing the city council. Val mentioned that, how during the workshop she attended, she felt that they were definitely unprepared, and it didn't look like they had it all together. And then all of a sudden they have a number, they have all these numbers. It's like, where did they get this information from? Because there hasn't been a way for people to see them actually working during these city council meetings, because the workshops were supposed to be, helpful for them to not only learn about city government, but also to speak with staff and such, to know like what is necessary to make this budget happen, to make it work. And so I thought that was kind of interesting how Kippett ended up making an off the cuff, speech about that she wrote out, and that was in reference to Valerie Bodart.
Right.
So
and
that the comment that I want to make point of is that she wanted to make it appear that she just had a change of heart, but it just wasn't. It didn't come off that way.
Yeah, but Mark Kippett the week that had just said the week before, we need the 16 and a half. It's a need. I've looked at the budget, and now I'm convinced that that's the right thing to do. Don't forget that.
Mark Kippett said he spent days looking at the budget and how it made sense, and he was so supportive of the city council that he is definitely for the 16.5, and that we should definitely increase the budget. I mean, he was definitely on fire for that.
Right. Everything, and there's two things that happened at citizens' comments at that meeting that were important. One, when former Mayor Father Michael O'Donegan got up and said, "Did you guys have workshops? Did you talk about the budget? Did you have workshops?"
He knew the answer to that.
And
so bizarre.
No, but I know you've got your conspiracy theory, but
no, I know
the problem is either he likes playing silly,
he does,
or they weren't anywhere near as transparent as what they claimed they would be. Because if they truly wanted everybody to know that those workshops took place, even Father Mike would have known.
No, you're absolutely. That's why I say he knew. Well, listen,
Did he know the answer to the question?
He knew
Robert?
the answer to the
Yes.
question, and the reason why I say he did is because what he was trying to do was get it on the written record, where he asks the question because the mayor breaks decorum and answers the question. So let's not forget that this is all a setup. There's nothing that Mike Donegan does that is going to be a surprise, and when he acts like he doesn't know something, you can bet he does, because Scott, goodness knows, you among all people should know. You had lunch with him or something. You know that there's two ways Mike Donegan sees things: his way and the wrong way. And so and I'm sure you learned how stupid you were after having that lunch. Of course, I think you had one with Kippett too, and you can't be even.
Let's not go into that.
Yeah. So
but the other comment that was made.
Yes.
Was by, wasn't it Mayor Short's campaign manager?
Oh yeah, Jody.
Isn't that Jody was his campaign manager, right, Adrienne?
Yes.
Treasurer. Yeah.
Treasurer.
Campaign treasurer. Mm-hmm.
And she gets up and tells all of them to go home and look in the mirror and determine if they think they're really doing what's best for the city. I mean, she read them the riot act. And you're
I'm
sitting
sorry,
here. Do you think that was staged too?
It was totally staged. You know why? Because
you guys are so cynical.
I don't know about that one. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Adrienne.
No,
I want to hear
it
your
was
point.
staged because she had a situation between her and David Day making comments that were absolutely untrue, and then his attorney contacted her directly, and then she ended up getting with Lance Agee's wife, Diana Powell Agee, to pretend to be a legal aid. So no, I don't put it past her that she goes up there and makes statements to make it appear that she has been facetious. She's been one of those people that if you saw her at the planning and zoning meeting, how she acts, that she didn't be appropriate at the city those meetings for P&Z or even at other city council meetings. I mean, the woman.
I understand.
Does not do her own research. I'm sorry.
My question is, if they knew that she was going to ask that question or say those things, what good did it do for them? It didn't do them any good. Mike Donegan's question sets them up so that they can say, "Oh yeah, we had 3 budget meetings. We had 2. We had an all-day meeting. Oh yeah, we've been." And what does Mike Donegan say? Oh okay. Oh well okay. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were doing your job. Jody, I think, was genuinely angry that they are considering raising her taxes, as she should be. But I think that she should be even more mad at herself for helping to push an agenda that was based upon lies and outright conjecture. Well, it was all lies to get her
she
friends
previously
elected.
Has been involved in reading off scripts that Mark Kippett has prepared for her.
Of course,
They all
I don't
have been
doubt that.
participating in agendas to in regard to the fire department issues and all that in the past. I think the whole thing, it was a ruse by her to make this whole appearance, because she was just at a little luncheon with her little friend with Kippett's wife, and I'm sorry,
But what good does it? No, help me.
Aware of. She has direct line to talk to her, and she's not aware of all these situations.
Why would she? Okay,
come on.
But why? What good does it do for her liberal friends?
Because it makes it appear that they're listening to the people. Okay, this whole thing is to make an appearance.
But that's
it's all
it.
Smoke and mirrors.
She gets up there and makes that comment, and there's never a response.
Right.
If that's what they were doing,
they did
Bloom
that for
Bloom would have made a comment.
Yeah.
When Lorna changed the budget number and would have said, "Oh, well, of course, we're going to listen."
Yes.
Lorna, I'm so glad that you changed that amount, because that allows us to acknowledge Jody's comments and show that we're paying attention. That didn't happen.
That's right. No, it didn't.
So
why did she leave?
Why did she get up and leave?
She left right after.
Well, so did I.
She made her comments.
So did I.
She didn't. Yeah, well, we know what you did.
Oh, well, I'm not touching that one.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just saying that she didn't care. They already knew. They already had all this stuff planned out.
Absolutely,
she already
Adrienne.
had a discussion with Kippett. There's no question in my mind. That presentation, if you looked at it, it was obvious that they already made their decision. And I even made that point. It's like I already knew what they were going to, they've already made a decision.
Yeah, I've got a special treat that I've put together. This was the last. I think it was the last. I'm not sure which council meeting did Kippett call you reprehensible there, Scott?
It was the meeting
That would have
before.
been September 10th.
Okay, well, from that, I have taken all of his comments. Mark Kippett, one of the most dishonest men that you'll ever come across, in my opinion, based upon my experience. And based upon his own words, I basically take all of his comments and I highlight how they are clearly attempting to mislead and deceive.
You're not.
What?
I'm not hearing you through the.
Oh, okay. Well, I am still. Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay.
You must be off. Sorry, but anyway, that'll be coming up. So that because he calls you reprehensible, Scott, and I let him. You can judge for yourself who the reprehensible one is. And with that, I just want to thank my guests today, the Doctor of Finance, Scott Turnbull, and the Iron Lady, Adrienne Balkum. Thank you both so much for being with me today and for joining me.
Okay, before you
sure.
roll us out,
yeah.
I know that originally, in fact, part of the reason why I was called reprehensible was because I threatened the city council with a rollback election.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to come back and visit you next Tuesday, hopefully.
Okay.
And we're going to discuss why, even though they lowered this tax rate, we still need the rollback election.
Great. I think that would be. I think that's the big question, I think, on most citizens' minds. And of course, Mark Kippett has already established that he is ready and poised and ready to put his leftists on alert, that they plan to obfuscate the truth and again scare people into believing things that are simply not true. And we'll highlight a lot of those things. So don't forget that if you are not subscribed to this channel, you're going to miss the opportunity to see me live. Hopefully we won't do what we did today. We were an hour behind schedule based upon trying to get some slides added to this presentation, and but hopefully that won't happen again. Hopefully the time that we say we're going to be on, we will be on. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button as well. We're getting close to 900 subscribers, and for a city of 2,500 people, that's a pretty significant thing. And so I hope that you'll continue to come back. If you have questions, be sure and email me at bob@bunkerbob.com. And so I'm glad to hear that Scott wants to get back together. If it's Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll post that as soon as I know, and so that you'll be informed. And I hope that you have a great rest of your week. So please continue to stay informed and continue to stay active. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.